It's Alabama Day at SEC Media Days. I'm joined by defensive lineman Tim Keenan. Tim, you're going into a bigger role in leadership. How excited are you to take on that big role?
Oh, it's definitely an honor and a privilege. It's the biggest thing ever, and with that, I make sure I pray to God and make sure I order my steps in His Word to lead His people. So I make sure I put my best foot forward for my guys and also for the program.
Last season didn't end the way you hoped. What has Coach DeBoer's main message been this entire offseason to the entire team?
Just really just finishing going 1-0 and executing throughout the whole game, playing the full 60 minutes, not having a great half or just a great quarter, but having a great 60 minutes or further than that, just playing the whole game.
And final question, what can Alabama fans expect from Tim Keenan this year?
My absolute best, that's all I can say. I know words can only mean so much and do so much, but to the fans, I'm gonna do my best and put my faith in God and have fun in Bryant-Denny and other places.
Thanks so much for your time, Tim. We'll have more Alabama coverage throughout the entire day on WVUA 23 Sports. SEC Media Days is underway in Atlanta, and LSU just wrapped up in the main media room. Right now, I'm joined with Wilson Alexander of The Advocate. Wilson, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, JD.
Absolutely. So after LSU just wrapped up, what was your biggest standout or biggest point of reference for you?
LSU's got a lot of speed at wide receiver this year. That's one thing that stands out. They have 4 wide receivers who have topped out over 23 miles an hour, and that's something that was kind of missing from their team last year. It should help in the vertical passing game, which is an area in which they were inconsistent. The other thing that really stands out is Brian Kelly is confidence in the defense. LSU, as we know, has not played championship-level defense for the past few years, especially in 2023. He says now, after everything that they've added onto the roster through the portal, the development of young players, that this is a defense under Blake Baker, their second-year coordinator, that can help them maybe compete for a title.
They're opening up against Clemson. If they can get that win in Death Valley and win their first home opener since the Brian Kelly era started, how much of a confidence boost do you think that's going to be for this team moving forward?
Oh, a great deal of confidence would come from that. As you said, they haven't won one under Brian Kelly. They also haven't won one since the 2019 season. This is a long streak now that's developed. LSU keeps scheduling really tough Week 1 games, and the past few years, it just looked really unprepared at times, flat, sloppy in the Week 1 opener, and this is something that they're really focused on this year. Brian Kelly has sort of made it a point of emphasis here in the offseason. Garrett Nussmeier, I think, described it best today as they're focused on going 1-0, and that even though it doesn't have a whole lot to do with Clemson necessarily, it has more to do with the fact that they need to start strong regardless of who they're playing.
You spoke about the defense not living up to the standard. Do you think that under Blake Baker's second year as defensive coordinator for the Bayou Bengals, do you think that's going to just help with just consistency and everything?
When Blake Baker was hired last year, he was hired along with multiple other staff members. LSU overhauled the defensive staff completely. They didn't change the talent or the players there on the defensive side of the ball a whole lot. So it always felt like they could raise the floor of what they were capable of, but there was a lower ceiling than what LSU needed to be able to really lean on the defense in every game. That's now changed. You're going the second year with the same coaching staff pretty much, but you've got a lot of different new players. LSU feels like it's upgraded the talent at a lot of different positions, especially in the secondary. The secondary is going to look a lot different from what LSU had last year in terms of its personnel. And if that is to be believed, that it can be an improvement, then this might actually be a unit that can maybe become a top 25 unit again, something that can really help LSU win games if they're all able to gel and come together.
Thank you for joining us. We'll have plenty more SEC coverage here throughout the entire week. Stay tuned on WVUA 23. Day 1 of SEC Media Days is in the books, and one of the teams that went today were the Vanderbilt Commodores. I'm joined today by Joey Dwyer of Vandion SI. Joey, Vanderbilt last season finished 7-6 and won the Birmingham Bowl. How do you think Vanderbilt can improve this season?
Well, I think Clark Lee's been pretty transparent this offseason. First of all, they were first in the country last year in offensive turnovers. They turned it over 7 times on the season. He knows that's not sustainable, and he knows they've got to be more explosive offensively next year. And also on defense, they've got to force more turnovers. They have to be a more dynamic team. They can't just hog the ball the entire game and hope to win that way again. But they do think they're improved on the line of scrimmage. Obviously, having Diego Pavia back for a second year helps.
Last season was also the best season since James Franklin was at Vandy in 2013. What does this say about the turnaround that Clark Lee and his culture has done to this program?
Yeah, I mean, it's a miraculous turnaround. You look at last year, they came here, they were 2-10. They were in the middle of a quarterback competition where you don't know if Diego Pavia is going to start or Nate Johnson's going to start. Now Diego Pavia over there, sitting there in a crowd of, 50 or 60 people. He's the biggest star of SEC Media Day, which I don't know that I've ever said that about a Vanderbilt player. It's unbelievable to say, but, I mean, they were one of the stories of Media Day, and I think that's largely due to Clark Lee. Like, he's done it his way. He's put his processes in place, and it's worked, and a lot of people doubted him along the way, but that's what's made this program successful is that they've had the chip on their shoulder, and they've kind of fed off that over the last couple of years.
The Commodores had a really nice transfer portal class, including Alabama transfer Keanu Coate. What have you heard about his process so far at Vanderbilt?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be given anything. They do have some guys on the edge who I think could compete with him for the starting role, but from what I saw in spring ball, he's really explosive. He's really physical. I think it's a guy who could really take a leap with more opportunity. Obviously, that's a loaded room at Alabama, and I think Vanderbilt's hoping that maybe the change of scenery can be good for him, but they really like Keanu Coate.
With all the returning production, including the OC, including Pavia, including Eli Stowers, who's arguably one of the best tight ends in the country, including everyone, how do you think this Vanderbilt team could possibly top last year's performance?
Yeah, I go back to they have to be more explosive, they have to be more dynamic. They return 78% of their offensive production, 77% of their defensive production, so it's largely the same group. They think they're much better on the offensive line. I think that'll help them keep Diego Pavia a little bit healthier, things along those lines, but you're really looking at it and you're really just saying, man, they could really fall off a cliff if they're following the same blueprint, which didn't quite seem to be as sustainable as many had thought at the time. But I think if they hit on more splash plays, they develop on the line of scrimmage, they've certainly got more depth there. They could be in for a better year, and I think there's a lot of optimism there that they could be.
Thank you so much for your time. We'll have more SEC Media Days coverage coming in the next few days right here on WVUA 23 Sports. SEC Media Days just wrapped up day 2, and the final team to go today, the Texas Longhorns. I'm joined today by CJ Vogel of On Texas Football. CJ, what was some of your big takeaways today from the Longhorns?
Yeah, I think you have to start with Arch Manning and some of the expectations, the hype, obviously the media train, the buzz that goes around it, it is magnified today. Here at SEC Media Days, I think a lot of folks are, one, anticipating what Arch will look like on the field, but two, they want to hear from him because, quite frankly, haven't seen him a whole lot behind the microphone, and to get that little taste of what's to come this fall, I think was pretty exciting. But on top of that, a bit more questions were answered today about Arch and what's to come this fall. I think he's got a great personality, and I think he goes about it the right way in the sense that it doesn't feel like it's too big for Arch, right? I think for a lot of quarterbacks, especially first-time starters, especially in the SEC, lights might get pretty bright at times, but for Arch, with the family last name, this is stuff that he's been expected to overcome and deal with and really be a part of, and he embraces it and does very well in the bright lights, I would say.
This is not just a one-man team. Texas is also returning some other players, including Anthony Hill and Michael Taft today. CJ, what did you think from Anthony Hill and Michael Taft today, and how is that defense going to help out Arch Manning?
Yeah, I think the defense is going to be the strength of the Texas team. And look, Anthony Hill, Michael Taft, 2 second-team All-Americans from a year ago as well. They're going to be the heartbeat of that defense. Michael Taft, again, I think he embraces what it means to be a Texas Longhorn very well. He encompasses the university, the pride of Austin, Texas very well. It's something that I think Texas is very fortunate to have him represent their university. And on the field, he's a pretty darn good football player as well.
Last season, Texas made the semifinals just to lose to Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. CJ, do you think that Texas this year, under a new quarterback and with some experience on defense, do you think they could get to that next level and finally get to that national championship after 2 years of knocking on the door?
Yeah, they've been close. I think that defense is going to be at a level in which they can get to the national championship. It will be about the offense. It will be about if Arch Manning lives up to the expectation. It will be about if that offensive line, which is brand new, can get them to where they want to go against some really talented SEC teams. But all in all, that's a talented football team. And going into the year, I would expect them to be certainly in that conversation to make it over the hump this year.
Thank you for your time, CJ. We'll have more coverage from SEC Media Days tomorrow and the next day. More on WVUA 23.
Well, playing Vanderbilt in football is usually an afterthought for SEC teams, but that changed in 2024, and the Commodores' resurgence was led by a transfer quarterback from New Mexico State. WVUA 23's JD Zasa reports from Atlanta.
In 2023, the Vanderbilt Commodores finished with the worst record in the SEC at 2-10. Many college football fans expected more of the same last year before seemingly out of nowhere, the Commodores went 7-6, including a win over number 1 Alabama. What changed? Quarterback Diego Pavia. He and head coach Clark Lee changed the culture of the program.
I think at this point, we can confidently say, hey, our expectation is to win. We know that winning isn't easy. We know that there are going to be ups and downs. The way we impact the outcome is to focus in the moment.
According to Sports Illustrated, Vanderbilt has the 5th hardest schedule in the country, with trips to Texas, Tennessee, South Carolina, and Alabama. The Commodores and its quarterback are not backing down from the competition.
The SEC is beautiful, and I'll say this because I believe, there's no better conference than the SEC. And that's due respect because there is great players in the Big Ten, there is great players in the ACC and all these other conferences too. But every single week you're taking a beating. It's one of the best teams in the country that you're going to face every single week. And so I just got to mentally prepare this year for that.
Pavia is one of 7 returning starting quarterbacks in the SEC. While Vanderbilt might have one of the hardest climbs in the conference, there's a newfound belief in the building. Reporting from the Omni Hotel in Atlanta, Georgia for SEC Media Days, I'm JD Zasa, WVUA 23 Sports. No one knows what can happen in a year. This time last year, Alabama linebacker Deontay Lawson thought he would be getting ready to start his NFL career. After suffering an ACL tear in November, he had to put the NFL on hold. Alabama now has a 2-time captain in the middle of its defense.
Seeing him attack it, seeing him and his mindset, him understanding the circumstances he can't control and what he can. Oh man, it's just amazing seeing him take over not just the defense, but be a leader on our football team.
It kind of made me just want to dig deeper in, life after football or, some goals after football.
Lawson's road to recovery has been a long and painful process, but having his support system around has made it just a little bit easier.
My family, them being my support system, them driving down to Tuscaloosa whenever they need to. Obviously, it's rough. Every day is not going to be pretty. You're going to have your days where you don't feel like doing it, but this is what I got to do.
Before getting injured, the 2-time Butkus Award semifinalist had the 2nd most tackles on the team, despite nearly missing the last 4 games. Lawson, when he arrived in Alabama, had the ultimate goal of winning a national championship, just like the classes before him. Now he has one final opportunity to achieve his goal. Reporting from the Omni Hotel in Atlanta, Georgia at SEC Media Days, I'm JD Zasa, WVUA 23 Sports.